Simon, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Simon, for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation. We're going to delve into stuff that is going to be so fascinating. I'm really excited about it. So, Simon, you define yourself as a consciousness researcher. What does that mean?
I define myself as a scientist turned consciousness researcher.
Love it.
Actually,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, let's start from there. So you were a scientist,
Yes,
and then now you've become a consciousness researcher.
that's right.
Talk to me about that transition.
Yeah, actually, I'm still a scientist, but my main focus is consciousness now. Yeah, I'm trained as a scientist. I was born and grew up in China, and I came to this country in 1980s as a student. I finished my education with a PhD in material science from Cambridge. So then I started working as a materialist scientist. So that was actually my childhood dream, to be a scientist. Yeah. I'm a very curious child. I'm still a curious adult. So curiosity drives me to become a scientist because I want to understand how the universe works. Everything works. Yeah. In my childhood, my favorite book was a popular science book called 10,000 Whys to explain everything, how everything works in science with scientific terms. So that was my favorite book, my childhood favorite book. So that really drive me to become a scientist and to fulfill my curiosity. Yeah. So for many years, I have been kind of happily work as a material scientist to develop new materials, advanced materials, including metals, semiconductors, ceramics, polymers, to solve real-world challenges and problems. Yeah. So that was purely in a physical reality. Yeah. Then something happened which brought my perspective. Can I tell the story how I got actually sort of expanded from physical reality into something else? So in early 2000, when I was traveling in China on a business trip, my wisdom tooth started to play up, become quite painful. And I went to a conventional dentistry. I was told it's quite a complicated case. So I need probably a general anesthetic to get it out. Then a friend of mine said, "Oh, why don't you go to this place, unconventional dentistry?" Then I become curious. Yeah, he told me, "Oh, he's doing a fantastic job." So unconventional, and some might call him a witch doctor. Yeah. So I said, "Oh, let me go have a look." Then I went to his dentistry. I was intrigued because there's a lot of photos on his wall with very famous personalities, including the member of Chinese Communist Party Bureau and movie stars, celebrities, pop stars. They all had their tools taken out there. So I said, "Oh, this is encouraging. Let me do it." So he actually did it quite effortlessly. Yeah. There's some pain, but not much. And he just managed to pick it up. Yeah. Then we went to lunch together. And during lunch, I asked him, what actually happened? What did you do to me? He casually commented. He said, "Hey, I have an incantation." I don't know whether you know what is incantation.
Explain for me.
Incantation is something like a spell, like a mantra, like a spiritual spell. He said, I use that to losing teeth so I can get them out effortlessly. I still don't know these days whether he was telling me the truth, but this experience triggered my curiosity into something unexplained. Yeah. So I have been always, up to that point, I've always been working with materials, physics, which can be explained by conventional science. But now it's something else, which is very intriguing, but very puzzling also. Yeah. So my curiosity got overcharged from that point. I actually went into the paranormal research. There's a circle of people, circle of kind of edge science, yeah. They have a kind of circle of paranormal researchers. And in this country, we call it parapsychology. It's actually a university degree. Parapsychology study the purported phenomena which cannot be explained by science. So I got involved in this circle of researchers, yeah, including the International Parapsychology Association and also the Society for Psychical Research. And I even become a vice president of Chinese Parapsychology Association.
Wow. It's quite different, isn't it, from science? Because science is quite fact-based. You're finding evidence, you're finding facts, physical forms.
Yeah.
And then the research that you're now moving into is something that can't be seen, can't be touched necessarily. So is that quite a leap?
Yeah, but there's a physical effect which is measurable.
Okay.
Yeah. So although the cause is not easily identified, and that makes it more fascinating, but the effect is visible. I mean, the removed teeth, and from then, I come across all sorts of paranormal phenomena. Yeah, such as teleportation. The object, physical object, can be moved from one place to another. Yeah, by the mind. Yeah. Not many people can have experience of this, but because I spend a lot of time visiting people like that.
You've seen that?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it firsthand, yeah.
And what can you describe what happened in that situation?
Well, we actually did a lot of experiment also. Even nowadays, because we have GPS tracker, yeah, we can ask the psychic to teleport the tracker, so we can actually track the distance it traveled and how it's coming back. Yeah. If your listeners are not familiar with mind over matter, you can think of like spoon bending, for example. Yeah, that's a classical.
I've seen it, but I could never work out whether this is a magic trick. Is this an illusion? Is it real? There's some quite famous people that do things like that. What's your perspective on it?
It's a mixture. Okay. It's a mixture. Yeah, from my decades of investigation, it seemed to me there's always a mixture. There's a genuine one. There's a fake one. Yeah, there's real phenomena. There's a trickster. So it's very fascinating how to distinguish those two is another topic I'm kind of investigate also.
So on the different scales in that situation, you've seen someone that can actually bend a spoon with their mind.
Yes. And that's quite normal. I mean, many people can do that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Even very thick ones. Yeah. It's impossible to do it purely by physical means because it's so hard. You either hurt your hand or you kind of you just can't move it.
Can you explain that from a scientific perspective, or can you explain it from a consciousness perspective? What's happening there?
I can come back to that later to explain those phenomena. Yeah. So mind over matter is one category of paranormal. Okay. So you have a change of location, teleportation, and even to the extreme poltergeist. Do you know what poltergeist is?
Explain it to me.
Poltergeist is something which some people experience. Objects just move around, in the house, and some people think it's involved with the ghosts.
Yeah, it's just my wife moving my keys to make me feel like I'm going crazy.
Sometimes the physical objects can move around.
That's a better explanation than my wife trying to make me go mad. So
yeah, that's one of the explanations. But there's so many other cases which cannot be explained conventionally. So to do with how the consciousness can operate to influence the physical reality. Yeah, we can come back to that later. But another category is called extra sense of perception. Yeah, some people can see things without their physical eyes. One example is remote viewing. Yeah, some people actually can see far distances without using their physical eyes. Yeah, it's called remote viewing. And another extrasensory perception is actually kind of mind-to-mind communication. Some people can figure out what the other people's, the content of the other people's mind. Yeah. Another example, maybe your listeners more familiar, is actually precognition. Yeah. For example, a precognitive dream. Some people have vivid dreams, about an event, and he or she tells his family or other friends. Some people actually to write down, so it's evidence of the dream. Then that event actually happened.
So they've written down evidence of the dream. They've written down a dream or something that's happening, and then they've seen it. Then it's actually happened later in the future.
That's right. Yeah. So with a lot of witnesses, there's many cases like this. Yeah. So although it's kind of sounds a bit weird, those cases, but actually in the general public, there's quite a high degree of acceptance. Yeah, you're talking about 30-40% people actually think it's true. Yeah. And with smaller percentage people actually experience those. Yeah. The dreams and come true. And the moving objects, even including poltergeists. So those kind of phenomena becomes a window for me to look into something else beyond the physical. I want to find out the cause, why these things happen, and how those things can happen. So that becomes my focus, my research. Yeah.
And can those things, is that the part where you move into the consciousness researching?
That's correct.
Outside of the scientific.
Yeah. I say it's still a scientific research, but it's a new science. Yeah. Science actually evolves, it develops. It's not just a fixed doctrine. Science evolves all the time. And the sort of scope of scientific inquiry also expands. Yeah. In early days, science only studied the hard physical materials, objects like planets, motion, Newton's law, and then expanding to study energy, fields, nowadays it's expanded into study information, like what you're doing, in your job. AI, consciousness, intelligence, all those becomes a new content of scientific research. But with new content, you actually need new models, new tools to study them. Therefore, the science expands. With the science expansion, you need scientific revolution also. In scientific term, they call it paradigm shift. From one paradigm to another paradigm. So science actually goes through paradigm shift. I think I'm actually lucky to be in the middle of scientific revolution, actually. Because science needs to answer new questions, seek new answers. We need to understand the universe in a new way. That is also quite normal, because we build new models when the time develops. We also use metaphors, because metaphors help us to understand things. So science use metaphors to build a model, and use that model to explain the reality. In the early days, in the mechanical age, we had the clock and watches. So we model the universe as a clock-like machine. So we can actually use Newton's laws to predict the position of the planets or an object. In the next time, in the next period of time, we know exactly. It's like a clock. So we model the universe as a clock. When the human society was electrified, we had a new concept called electricity. And we use electricity, this new concept, to model the micro universe. So we have an atomic model with the nuclei, which is positively charged, and with the electrons, which is electrically negatively charged. So we use electricity as a concept to build a new model which explains the micro universe. Now we are in the information age. We have new concepts, like computer, like big data, like artificial intelligence, like virtual reality. Those concepts give us new metaphors to develop new model reality. Not surprisingly, some scientists proposed a new model of reality. It's called simulation hypothesis.
What's that?
Which means that to model this universe as an output of computation. So this reality is more like a matrix. Behind this reality, there's a computer. So this reality actually is rendered by this computer. So that's another new model of reality.
So where does that sit with like a theory around evolution, and where do they sit side by side? The simulation, the matrix, evolution. Because are they all aligned? Are they competing with each other in terms of theories?
No, I think the new theory has to explain everything the old theory explains. Like when Einstein's theory of general relativity come out, it has to explain what Newton's theory explains. So it's kind of expansion. Every paradigm shift has to be expansion. So the previous theory become a subset of the new theory. So within the new simulation theory, the classical theory and quantum mechanics become a subset of the new theory. Yeah. So the new theory can explain all the phenomena which the existing theory can explain, but it can also explain more. Yeah.
So just to ensure that I'm with you, so let's explain. I'll be keen to understand what you mean by the word simulation, and also what you mean by the word matrix. So when you say simulation, can you just define that for me?
Simulation basically means it's output of computation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of definition I use. In kind of virtual reality, we call it rendering. Yeah. So the virtual reality is rendered by the computer using a set of programs.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what simulation means in this case. So the theory of the simulation hypothesis is not actually new. Yeah, as early as I think 1969, a German computer scientist called Konrad Rossi first proposed this idea. Yeah, so it's already quite old. In the Konrad Rossi was a pioneer in computer scientist. Actually, he developed the first programmable computer in 1940s in Germany. So he was really a pioneer. And he proposed this idea in 1969. So he was the first to actually to think about this idea. When you think about it, this is not actually surprising because he studied computer. Yeah, he see everything from the computation point of view. It's like when we have a hammer, we see everything is a nail. Yeah. So similarly, a computer scientist, he see, this universe probably can be seen as an output of computation.
Okay. So this physical reality is an output of computing. I'm trying to make sure I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the idea. That's the basic assumption. Again, theory is a tool, yeah? It's for us to understand. It's for us to simplify things so we can understand with some simple terms. And this is one of the simplification. We call it a model in science.
And you used the word earlier, the matrix, obviously. Lots of people will be thinking about the film.
Yeah.
Is that what you're considering here?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Matrix is a good popularity of this idea. It came out in 90s. Yeah. In 90s, there's also some scientists supporting this idea, like another famous physicist, John Wheeler. Yeah, he actually coined a term called "it from bit." Yeah, it means everything. Yeah, we call it this "it." From bit. Bit is the data. It's the code. Yeah, so it from bit. So everything from bit. Yeah. So as more and more scientists begin to actually to think this idea seriously, not only scientists, philosophers, biologists, cosmologists, and technology leaders like Elon Musk. He is quite vocal on this idea. Yeah, Elon Musk actually think the chance of this physical reality is base reality is 1 to billions. Yeah, so that means this cannot be the base reality.
So he's, in his mindset, he's suggesting that there are many realities and we are just experiencing one of them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, this cannot be the base reality. Yeah.
Cannot be the base reality.
Cannot be the base reality. The base reality is somewhere else, invisible.
But not what we're not able to be aware or conscious of it as we are? Or we have evidence of it? Or?
we cannot experience as we experience physical reality normally. But some people experience different reality anyway. Yeah. Like dream. Yeah. And actually everybody experience dream. And dream is another reality, another level of reality. It's not physical. We can do all sorts of things in dream, which we cannot do here. Yeah, in this physical reality. Yeah. Some people are meditators, advanced, skilled meditators. They can experience different level of reality, which is not physical. Yeah, they can enter into different realms. And nowadays, some people can get into different level of reality by psychedelics. Yeah. I don't know whether you had one.
Yeah, I actually have a psychedelic researcher coming on in a few weeks' time.
I see.
Yeah, so psychedelic researcher, facilitator.
Okay.
And she's going to talk us through kind of what happens.
Yeah.
One of my best friends did it recently, and so he did it as a guided experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he came back to kind of our reality after he'd been on his trip, he said, I was allowed to drive home, but I just witnessed the creation of Earth, and I didn't really feel like I should have. Just like I'd witnessed the creation of the universe.
Yeah. Yes.
And he said it was just the most incredible experience.
Yeah.
He was completely out of his body. He didn't know he was a person. He wasn't a thing. He had no thoughts. He was just somewhere else experiencing something different.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic experience. And by the way, I do my research by talking to people like this. Yeah. People actually had experience either through psychedelics or through meditation or through lucid dreaming. Yeah. Some people have a vivid dream, which they can describe it's more real than this physical reality. Yeah. And also, people experience different realities when they're nearly dead. We call it near-death experience. Yeah. With the advance of medical research, medical facilities, medical equipment, many people can get revived after death. Yeah. So some people actually heart stopped. If your heart stopped, you actually cannot supply blood to the brain, and the brain doesn't work anymore. But in that state, they have a fantastic, vivid, more real experience. Yeah, it's more and more those cases. So I talk to all those people and try to understand what other reality is. So all my research is done by talking to people. So when your guest done this broadcast, I'll make sure let me know. I want to watch it. See how she actually described those experiences, because those are data. Yeah, data to help us to build a model of reality, which is beyond the physical. So in my model, actually, the computer which output this physical reality is in a non-physical level. I call it realm of forms, using Plato's terminology. I don't know whether you're familiar with Plato.
Always go back to the basics for me so we can understand it. It's always helpful. So talk to me about Plato.
Plato is one of the greatest philosophers, at least to my mind. Yeah. And Whitehead is another British philosopher. He commented, the safest way to describe European philosophical tradition is that they are all footnotes to Plato. So all the philosophers after Plato is actually simply just making footnotes to what Plato said, actually, to what Plato taught. That's 2,500 years ago. According to Plato, there's a realm of reality. He call it forms. Yeah. And this reality, physical reality, is actually a shadow, a poor imitation of the realm of forms. Yeah. So this is not the base reality. The base reality is in the realm of forms. Yeah. Which has the abstract existence, which is more real, more fundamental. Yeah. The physical reality is simply a shadow of that reality.
So this reality, what we're experiencing today, is a shadow
Yeah.
of, you said forms, but just to describe
Realm of forms. Realm is another level of reality.
Okay.
Yeah. In that reality, you have something more real, although it's not physical. It's abstract. It's mental, but it's more real.
And it's hard to comprehend. It's hard to comprehend.
It's not hard to comprehend. We have a different material existence, yeah? Like we have a different dogs, Labrador, yeah, pugs, yeah, and German Shepherd. We have different species of dog, yeah, different sizes and shapes, characters. But in the realm of form, there's an archetype of dog. It's called dogness. Yeah. And so we actually use that dogness to recognize dogs as a human. Yeah. Once we see a dog, we know it's a dog because we have this concept in our consciousness. Yeah, this dogness. So as soon as we see a dog, we can recognize it's dog, no matter what shape. Yeah, this is something actually AI is struggling, but we can very easily do that because we actually have access to that realm of forms. We have access to this abstract concept. Yeah. Another example is like apple. We have a green apple, red apple, ripe apple, yeah, not so ripe apple. But in the realm of forms, we have appleness, which is abstract apple, which is archetypal apple. Yeah, that apple never changes. This physical apple deteriorates, yeah, perishes in time. But that apple is kind of non-changing. Therefore, it's more real. And that's the basis of everything in this reality. So according to Plato, yeah, based on this principle, because we have a computer made of silicon, material computer made of silicon, yeah, it's a material computer. According to Plato, there ought to be a non-physical computer as the archetype, which is more real, more powerful, and I call it Platonic computer. So this level of reality is actually rendered by this Platonic computer into this physical reality.
Let's talk about that. So it's Platonic computing?
Yeah, it's a Platonic computer. Okay. Yeah, so the process of rendering, I call it Platonic computation. So this Platonic computer actually can work on different clock. Yeah, you can sort of format it, yeah, to run at different clock speed. And within this computation, Platonic computation, if you run a different clock speed, you render reality which has the vibration frequency of different level. Yeah. I don't know whether I explained clearly.
I know you do. You do. I'm just trying to
understand. So you know when you render something with computer, the output updates at a certain sort of time interval. Yeah. Your screen actually refreshes. Yeah. Every few milliseconds. Yeah. And that refresh, that update rate is determined by the clock within the computer.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. So that refresh rate, it's like a vibration of the display. So this Platonic computer can actually operate at a different clock speed, therefore produce reality which has a different vibration frequency, therefore different refresh rate. And this physical reality is one of the many levels. Yeah. And in this physical reality, we have a certain refresh rate, which is the vibration frequency of this physical universe. We have a set of rules. Yeah, we call it physics, determine how things works. Yeah, that rules is actually expressed by program, by this Platonic computer program. At other level reality, it's operate at a different clock speed. Therefore, it has a different vibration frequency, which is not normally accessible in our waking state. Yeah, like we are sitting now, we only experience physical reality, like your body, my body, this desk, this cup, this water. So we only sort of tune in at this level of reality. We experience this level of information. Yeah. Whereas at other level reality, like what I mentioned, dreaming, psychedelics, meditation, near death, and so they are operating at different level reality, vibrating at different frequency. You can imagine it's like in this space, you have a different TV station. They are all operating in this space actually, but they're vibrating at a different frequency. Therefore, we can only watch one channel when we tune in one channel. If you tune in other channels, you watch different channel programs. Yeah. So this physical reality is actually only one of the many channels.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me now. So this reality that we live in is one of the channels.
That's
when
right.
we take a psychedelic like mushrooms or something, we go to a different, our brain, our consciousness takes us to a different reality.
That's right.
But the near-death experience, does that take us somewhere different, or is that in the same, are they different channels, different vibrations?
I think there's different channels. There's many levels. Yeah. In different levels, you experience different level reality with different level of realness. Yeah. As I mentioned, some lucid dreamer, they actually access the reality which they think is more real. The near-death experience certainly is more real. Yeah, if you read, there's many books about the experience of near-death experience. And if you read their description, they don't want to come back because they're so real.
So that's where people talk about the white light or their life flashing before their
That's
eyes,
right.
Or they feel, some people who have said that maybe they've been in an operating theatre and they've died, they've come back, they said they could see their body, they could feel their body from a distance, they could see their body there, and they were kind of pulled back in some respect, and
yes,
they could feel themselves going off somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. When it initially out of the body, they are still in this reality, actually. Yeah. If they develop further, I mean, if their consciousness tune in further reality, then they don't see this reality anymore. They see a different level of reality.
So I've got a question for you on that then. So my wife has quite lucid dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and she often will dream about her family that have passed on. So her dad unfortunately recently passed last year, and that was last year, and this year her nan was in her 90s and passed as well. She gets visits from them in her dreams.
Mm.
Is that what you're talking about? Is that her connecting to another consciousness? Is
Yeah.
that the lucid dreaming?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Death isn't the end of the story. Yeah. I know it's different from the sort of mainstream materialist scientist point of view. But from my research, I concluded actually we also exist at all level of reality. Yeah. So we have a different level of reality determined by this vibration frequency, like TV channel, yeah. But within each vibration frequency, within each level of reality, there's also observer to observe that reality. That observer is actually ourself also.
Okay.
Yeah, we call it higher self. Yeah, that's another concept. Yeah.
So that higher self is within us.
Higher self, you can imagine it's like a nested Russian doll. Yeah, we are actually nested Russian doll. Yeah, when we die, actually we like a snake, we shed this physical body. Yeah, exposed to the inner body, which is a higher self, which carries on. Yeah, that inner self, also call it the higher self, can choose to get into another avatar, to be born as another human.
Choice.
Yeah, or to go somewhere else. Yeah, or if our inner self, our higher self, fed up with this game, yeah, we can decide to go somewhere else. And if we want to play another game, yeah, we choose another environment, choose another family to born into, and to experience different life.
So with that said, does that mean our souls, our higher self, is eternal?
Again, because there's a different level of reality. Yeah, the eternity only happens at the top. Okay, between the top reality and this reality, there's a degree of longevity. Yeah, it's not absolute eternal, but it's like this body. Yeah, it lasts kind of 80, 90 years. Yeah, we are actually build another level of reality with this physical computer. We call it the metaverse. We call it virtual reality. So when we kind of embody that avatar in the computer game, we actually live as that avatar. I don't know whether you play computer game.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so you can understand, yeah? When you play that avatar in GTA, for example, you travel around, yeah, you actually live a life of that avatar. And that avatar has a much shorter life than this physical life because you soon fed up with that character. You either crash into sort of other cars.
I'm a terrible driver, so I don't think I'm going to last long.
yeah. So you actually dies, yeah. But it's not a big deal. You change another character, you play another game. So you experience another life in another game. Similarly, our higher self, which is the one level above this reality, can play another avatar, another human body after this body finishes.
Let's discuss that, because I think the life after death, or it's not even. I think what you're saying is there's a choice after death, or there's different levels, different realms that you could go to. So is some of that is a spiritual realm,
Yes.
which is what, if you speak to someone that is a medium and they can communicate in some respects to a spiritual realm. So is that as one of the realms that you're
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Again, the medium is also part of the paranormal, parapsychology, subject to study. Yeah, mediumship.
So in your opinion, someone who is a medium, now you've kind of explained earlier that there are some people that when they bend spoons, there's an illusion there. But on the other end of that, people can do it. It's the mind over matter. It can happen. So
that's right.
Is your view on someone being a medium and they can share and give information about your loved ones that have passed and they have this intimate information? Again, my wife has been in a situation where my wife has quite a spiritual being, and she kind of, when she's with a medium, they can tell her a lot about her family, like in real detail, scary detail, where people wouldn't know the information.
That's right.
That's right. She was with her mum one time, and there was a bit of information shared, and her mum just broke out in tears because she's like, no one would have known that. It would have been impossible. So like that sort of thing happens to her often.
Yeah, there's many people experience that. And mediumship is one of the subjects to study in parapsychology. And survival is also another subject, which are related. Yeah. So in my model, because we have a higher self, the higher self exists above this reality. Yeah. Therefore, that higher self can actually access the database of this Platonic computer. Most of us are not active. Our higher selves probably more dormant. Yeah, because we want to focus our attention, focus our channel on this physical reality. We want to experience the physical life. Whereas other people, they can actually easily tune in. Yeah, their consciousness can tune in another vibration frequency. And by doing that, their higher self become active.
I get you. So it's basically activating your mind, your consciousness, to to connect with these different realms. And that's what someone who's a medium is doing, is they're connecting in.
That's right.
It's quite often what they do when you see them, sometimes they've got their eyes closed and you can just see that they're being communicated to in pictures, or they have words that will come up, or
basically they tune in to other level reality.
Got you.
Yeah, by doing that, they actually focus their consciousness into other level reality, and that other level reality, if it's a level above us, then the Platonic computer becomes accessible to them. So they can actually data mining relevant information. Yeah, they can actually take the data, they can replay. Yeah, so they can get image what's going on. I think that also explains why some people have a precognition. They can foretell the future because they can actually mine some data from this Platonic computer, and they can play that piece of data. They can get some output. Maybe not accurate, but sometimes can be accurate because situation can change, And provided the situation doesn't change dramatically, they can actually tell what's going to happen next. Yeah. So basically, it's the active of the higher self, which have access to the database. And by access database, you get access to the information about your relatives, about things going to happen, or even about the past, which already happened. Yeah. And another kind of thing which they can do is actually to change some parameters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a software configurator. Yeah, they can actually change some parameters. By doing that, the physical reality changes. So therefore, we can explain teleportation. Yeah, the location of an object is basically a coordinate. It's X, Y, Z, the three. Yeah, and if that data is changed, the location of this cup will change at the next refresh.
So is that how you put some fact to something moving?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's happening at this
That
computer.
that happens at the Platonic computer level. Yeah, by manipulating some parameters. Yeah, like this physical reality is kind of governed by a set of laws. Yeah, we call it physics.
Yeah,
but the physics is a set of program. In this new model, this new paradigm of science, the physics, the law of nature, is a set of program. And within that set of program, you have parameters which can be potentially turned off or turned on. For example, gravity. Gravity is a law, yeah, which governs the objects, yeah, govern our body, yeah, govern all the physical object. But the law of gravity is simply a program.
we can prove gravity easily, can't we? That's the difference.
We can prove it.
It's so easy to prove gravity,
Yeah,
because we know it's whatever you do, that's going to hit the floor.
That's right.
So
yeah.
so you can, although you can't see it, you can prove it because it's.
You can prove it, but you can interpret it in a different way with a new model. You can interpret it as a parameter. I mean, the 9.8 meters per second square is actually a parameter in that program.
It's data.
It's a data. Therefore, the output of running that program is the falling of objects. It's the free falling of apple in Newton's time, yeah? That's the program rendering. But if you manage to get into the program, you can turn off the gravity temporarily, locally. You cannot just turn it off for everyone. But if you can turn off locally, temporarily, you can have a levitation. Some people can levitate.
Well, that's also because again, then when we talk about the illusion, we talk about there are famous magicians that will kind of show that they're levitating, but that's part of a show, and you just never know. So what's happening there?
Again, that's mixture of real levitation or stage magicians levitation. Yeah. For psychic research like us, we actually go to see them. We have a controlled experiment.
So you've seen people levitate?
Yes.
You've seen it happen?
Yeah, it can happen.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw all sorts of things. Yeah. Sometimes can be actually fun. Yeah. Like teleportation. There's one guy in China, he makes a living by betting with people. And he bets. He's called a tortoise. Tortoise, the animal. Tortoise, yeah. And he bet 100 yuan, for example. And he let you to race with the tortoise. Yeah. You start in the same line. You sign your name on a sticker. You stick onto the tortoise back. So you know it's your signature, yeah? Then you start to race, yeah? It's like 100 or 50 meters, yeah? Of course you overtake him, yeah? You give the tortoise a few minutes, yeah. You crawl forward, and then you, of course, you overtake it. But when you reach the destination, the tortoise is already there with your signature on his back.
You saw this
Oh yeah,
happening.
yeah. I actually participate this.
If you're watching the tortoise, what happens? Like, how did he? I don't
Well,
understand.
because it's small, it's soon out of your sight. Yeah, you cannot see him anymore. But the trick is when you arrived at the destination, you see him already there. So that's teleportation. Yeah. So it's moved by a mechanism to the destination. So you always lose. Yeah.
That's insane. It's insane. It's hard to comprehend.
It's
but
hard
that's
to
why I love it. I love the conversation because it's so hard to comprehend, but you saw it with your own eyes.
Yeah. I think nowadays in the information age, we can access a lot of information. Yeah. But sometimes we actually trap ourselves in a cocoon.
Yeah.
So we only see certain information. We'll filter out other information which doesn't make sense to us. But if you open up, you actually very easy to access all sorts of informations. But you have to kind of be cautious, yeah, whether this is true information or not. Yeah. But if you're serious, you can find very interesting, very intriguing informations, which actually help us, particularly me, to open up to a possibility of new science. The new science to include other things which are not studied at the present by the mainstream science. So we can study it now and get ready for the scientific revolution, which I think is happening.
What sort of things are you thinking about studying in that instance? What sort of things that aren't being studied today can be considered?
I mean, all the paranormals are not studied by mainstream academia. Yeah. They kind of discard it because they can't really handle it. They gave it a label. Yeah, the label is called illusion. Yeah. So many people nowadays have near-death experience. Yeah. They just label it as illusion. And then full stop after this label. That's not science. Yeah. Even it's illusion, we need to explain how those illusions actually work. Even it's illusion, it is a part of consciousness. It's the content of our consciousness. Yeah. To understand consciousness, we need to understand illusion also. Even it is illusion. But I don't think it is illusion because people are telling us it's more real. Yeah. More real. That's their first-hand experience.
They feel like they've had an experience.
Oh, yeah.
That's what people talk about.
Oh, yeah. Which is more real, more profound. It's life-changing. You just label it illusion and bin it. It's kind of irresponsible.
But it's actually what you're suggesting is that they're tapping into another realm, another channel.
Yes.
They're having a different experience because they often will come back because it's life-changing. Will have I've changed my perspective.
That's right.
Or changed my perspective on life. Or
they become a different person. They normally become a much nicer, much loving, much more altruism. Yeah, they understand what life is about.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that's true. They always, whenever someone's had that type of experience, they always come back better.
Yes.
They never, to my knowledge, have I heard of or experienced that someone's come back and now I've become more negative or nasty or something like that. Their personality has become more positive. Why is that?
Because they kind of experience a high level of reality, which is closer to the source. Yeah. The source can be called in different names by different tradition. Yeah, can be called as a God, can be called as a Tao, as Brahman. It's different names, but it's the same thing. And that source is love.
So do you think that's the source?
That's the source. That is the source from which the computer is made. The computer is made by this source, from this source, with this source. Yeah, I actually call it matter consciousness. Matter means it's non-physical. It's the source consciousness. Yeah, matter consciousness. So matter consciousness become binary. And from this binary, you can build a computer. Yeah. Computer basically is just a switch. Yeah. You have billions of switches. It's basically a switch, on-off switch. But you connect it differently, you can produce magic things. So from this binary, you can build the machine and you can build the database. Data is basically strings of zeros, ones. It's binary. And also you can build your program pack. Yeah. Program in the machine language is also binary, zeros and ones. Yeah. So from this source, from this matter consciousness, you create this binary. And from this binary, you create a machine, create a database, create a program pack. And with all three components, you can run, you can actually render. And by adjusting different clock speed, you can render multiple level reality until we reach this physical reality. And we don't even stop here. We use a physical computer to build another level reality. We call it virtual reality. We call it metaverse, which is, again, it's a poor copy of this physical reality. Yeah. And let's go back to the original. I mean, all the spiritual tradition have this source to binary. Yeah, that's the first step. In Abrahamic tradition, God said, let's have the light. Let there be light. The next thing happens is the separation of light and darkness. So you have the binary. Yeah. In Hindu tradition, it's the Brahman which separate into Saguna Brahman, Naguna Brahman, another binary. Yeah, so one without attributes, one with attributes. In Taoist tradition, it's the Tao which split up into yin and yang. It's also binary. So once you have this binary, you can make computer, you can program it, you can run it, you can create reality. Yeah. So that's basically the model I'm working on, which actually unites all the spiritual tradition and which explain what the physics is all about. As I said, it's basically a set of programs with parameters, like 9.8 meters per second square is a parameter. And explain the physical reality because we can already use physics to explain physical reality. But we can also explain non-physical reality, which is accessible in altered state consciousness. Yeah, by meditation, by psychedelics, by lucid dreaming, by near-death experience. So we have this cosmology, which explain all the level of reality and explain where it's coming from, explain how it works, and also explain who we are. Yeah, we are not just simply this physical body. We have other inner levels of Russian nested doors, yeah, which are more real. It's our real self. It's our higher self. Yeah, eventually, the most higher self, we share the same entity. which is the source. You call it meta consciousness or Tao or Brahman or God. Yeah. So that's basically what my model explains.
Incredible. And the model that you've been working on, how long have you been investing time into this now?
Well, I started to look beyond the physical 20 years ago. And for many years, I wrestle with my materialist, scientific kind of viewpoint. Yeah. Try to explain the unexplainable. Yeah. So it's very frustrating. It's like intellectual edge. It's rather uncomfortable. I know it's real, it's happening. I couldn't explain it. So it's a wrestle. It's frustration. And then I kind of decided to change my worldview. Yeah, to let go of my preconceived idea of materialism. Then I started talking to people who are experiencer, who are actually psychic people, who are mediums, yeah, who actually experience. They can tell me all sorts of things. And those things are data. From those data, I build my models. That's how it happens. And by doing this model, by sharing this model with other people, I think people become more aware who they are, become more understanding of what reality is, and they become more relaxed. Yeah.
It's comforting to think there is something far bigger than we, as this physical reality of where we are.
That's right.
It's comforting to think there's a spiritual realm, there's life after death, there's other ways of consciousness which you can access through meditation, through psychedelics, so you can access a wider. There is
it's expansion. It's a liberation. Yeah, if you think this is a matrix, yeah, if you can break out the matrix, it's a liberation. And you become more capable also. It's not only you become more aware, you become more capable. You can actually influence the reality. Yeah, you can have a vision which become true. Yeah, I think most people, most leaders, no matter what discipline they actually have access to their higher self. That's why they become so extraordinarily successful, because they can make things happen. They can actually program it to happen, although they themselves may not be aware of that's happening, but they are unconsciously doing that. But if they become consciously understanding what's going on, they can be even more successful. They can be even more happier, more loving, yeah, more fearless. End of the day, if this is a game, yeah, there's no point to struggle that much.
Just on that point, because it reminds me of my favourite saying, which is everything happens twice, first in the mind, second in reality. And there's so much research in, and these are facts, people like Johnny Wilkinson, rugby, he will visualise what's about to happen before he makes it happen in physical reality. So, that's very well known in sports.
Yes.
You talk to a sports player, they will visualise the game the night before. Every morning I meditate. And my preference for meditation is a manifestation of the future. And I like to go there because, this moment has been manifested between us.
Mm-hmm.
That was manifested a number of years ago.
Yes.
of this is something that I want to do into my future, and therefore I had to think about it in depth, exactly what it'd look and feel like. So what you're talking about is manifesting. What's your opinion then? Because this is what these successful people are doing. They're manifesting, they're thinking about the future, and they're creating it in a physical reality.
Yes, that's manifestation. Yeah. So manifestation actually, some people struggle to manifest. Yeah. Some are easier.
Yeah.
The only difference is whether the higher self is activated.
Yeah, because quite a lot of the meditations will talk about your higher self.
Yes.
And talk about where you are today, and you becoming your higher self.
Yeah.
It will talk about you thinking about what your higher self is, and you trying to turn that into reality, but it has to start with thought. And the interesting thing is, before I did manifestation meditations, I never once would have thought about it. I had plans or goals or those sorts of things, but this is actually creating it, and they ask you to go as in detail as you can about what it's going to be.
Yeah. But I think thought is one thing. It's more important. What is more important is who is thinking. Yeah, it's no point. I mean, if the avatar can think, in a computer game, that avatar's thinking is useless. However, if it's a player's thinking, player have the power to manipulate the avatar. Yeah. So the player thinking is different. If the player happened to be a programmer, the program's thinking is even more powerful, because the programmer can actually to change, to change program, to introduce modifications even to the program. Yeah, that's the real power. That becomes more successful if people can do that. Yeah, I think some people do that anyway without realizing it. They do it unconsciously. Yeah, and those are the leaders in all the fields.
So they can do it, but it's unconscious. Are there instances or people you're aware of that can do it in a conscious way?
Oh yeah, I mean those psychic people.
Okay,
they are doing it consciously. Yeah, we sometimes put them into the lab, and they have to do it consciously.
They've gone into the lab, so you can record their brain. What do you?
Recording brain is one thing we do, but more often we just want to verify it's real.
Okay.
Yeah. Another example is the sort of mind over matter thing. Another example of teleportation is that we actually get one guy, again in China, into a lab. We lock him out, or we lock him into the room. We strip him out completely, even without underwear.
So he's in a room, naked.
Yeah.
A box, some kind of box. He's locked in.
Yeah, in the room. Yeah.
You're going to tell me he's got out somehow.
Banknotes into the room where he is. Money.
He was able to teleport in banknotes.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of banknotes.
And this is recorded, so you've been able to verify.
Yeah. Yeah. So Incredible. Yeah.
It's so hard to believe, but part of me believes it.
You have to see it to believe. Yeah. But there's so many other things. Yeah, if you open yourself, you can see all sorts of things. But it's not only fun, but it's open up your mind. As I said, you become liberated.
It's an exciting part of research and liberation, because if this physical realm is all we have, that feels limited to me.
Oh yeah, it's a prison. It's a matrix.
What you're talking about is there's a limitless consciousness.
There's a limitless. it's. I mean, the source is beyond space, beyond time. So this space is actually also program. Once you have the binary, you can program to create a space, like we did in a virtual reality. Yeah, we actually program to create a 3D space. Yeah, inside the computer. So the space is not. I mean, it's not inherent. It's created. It's rendered. Yeah, this space is the same. Our true self isn't in this space. It's outside. And this space is basically a prison. And because there's layers of space, yeah. Each level is actually embedded. It's nested within. Do you know? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to follow.
Yeah, it's a nested parallel universe. When we create the GTA, yeah, and that GTA world is nested within this physical world, but it's a parallel, and you can drive forever. You never get to the end of that world, but you never get out of the screen. Actually,
Okay,
it's within that screen, but within that screen you can drive forever. Yeah, because it's nested within this universe. Yeah, our space, yeah, is also nested in the level above. Yeah, so it's a prison within prison within prison. Yeah, thinking this is everything is just not enough.
so do you feel, are there other physical realities, but we're not aware of them? Is there another physical reality?
Can be.
Because everything we've talked about is consciousness, which is
yeah,
our brain.
The physicists call it parallel universe.
Yeah.
So in physics, they can derive parallel universe from quantum mechanics. So, but the parallel universe which physicists talking about is actually a horizontal parallel universe. Yeah, it's like a different planets, but it's still physical. Yeah, you can have a different planets, different cosmos in this physical reality. Yeah, they call it parallel universes, but it's horizontal, it's still on the physical level. What I'm talking about is beyond this physical. There's also nested parallel universe, which is a non-physical.
When you say nested, just explain nested for me. What do you mean by nested?
Like GTA is nested within this reality.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So it's a parallel universe, but it's the screen. The screen is a physical, exists in this reality. But within that screen, within that display, it's a new world. As I said, you can't drive to the end. You can drive forever. That's another world, but that world is nested within this world. And this world is nested within the level above, the universe level above this one. So that's a new cosmology. But again, it's a model, okay? So model isn't reality. Model is for us to actually to explore. In science, we call it hypothesis. Yeah, we don't know, but we can hypothesize. And hypothesis needs to be verified. Yeah, so by talking to people who has actually experienced other level reality through dreaming, through meditation, through drugs, psychedelics, through near-death experience, we can verify whether this reality is real or not. This model is real or not. If not, we can modify it. That's how That's how science progresses. Yeah, you make observation by empirical evidence. Yeah, then you build up hypotheses, build up models, build theories, and you test those theories by people who actually can access to those realities. I actually call them psychonauts, like astronauts. Yeah, astronauts go to different planets to explore, and those psychonauts, they go to different level reality to explore. Then they come back to report. Then we can modify our model, modify our hypothesis, and we progress that way as a new science. So that's my ambition. Just explore everything, including this physical, but also beyond. It's no good to just call it illusion. It's not illusion. Yeah, as I said, even illusion, you need to explain how those illusions come about. It's like if I stick a pencil in this glass, I see a bend in the pencil, yeah? And that's illusion. But as a science, we need to explain why it appears to be bent. And that's real science, to explain even its illusion. At the moment, the mainstream science just discard everything non-physical by label it as illusion and then forget about it.
So mainstream science discredits, discards the consciousness, everything that we've talked about, the consciousness.
Everything not physical.
Everything not physical
They discard.
And what's their counter-narrative to... They're just saying it's an illusion.
Yeah.
If you're doing a psychedelic, that's just
a
reaction to you taking a drug. And therefore, if you're having a dream, then that's part of your mind just throwing off some thoughts or pictures.
Yeah.
So they would have a counter-narrative to everything we're saying.
But poor counter-narrative. Very poor. Very poor. They
Mm.
cannot explain how the imagery is created. Yeah. How the imagery created. They cannot explain. They cannot explain what's happening within the brain if its brain is creating it.
Is that the subconscious, the brain that's creating an image? It's
how? How does brain create an image? There's no explanation. No one knows. Neuroscientists don't know. They haven't got a clue how the image can be created. Whereas if you introduce a computer into the system, then we know the image creation is very easy if you have a computer. Yeah, we have a proof. Yeah, we play with the game. We play with all sorts of game. We create image all the time. Yeah, easily, just by string of codes. So we have an explanation how those imagery come about. And we can explain how those images become more real when you reach higher level reality. And also, we can explain the time perception. In different level reality, we experience the time flow differently. Yeah. If you have a pleasant experience, I think a pleasant experience, even in this reality, involves the higher self. The higher self is the source of pleasure, source of happiness. So if we are in a happy situation, the time goes very fast.
It does.
So the time perception is different. So when the people who actually meditate, when they have a deep meditation, they think it's only 10 minutes. When they come back, oh, it's a few hours. The time perception is different when you are active at a different level reality.
So is there any explanation for that?
It's the clock. It's the clock within the Platonic computer which tick-tock different speed. That's why we have a different time perception at different levels. There's many examples. Some meditators, they meditate in a cave, and they come out, it's decades past. And there's also many stories. And one story, do we have time? A short story I'm telling. Okay. It's history in China is well recorded. A guy who chopping woods to make a living. One day he went to the mountain to chop wood. And he saw two Taoist monks, young monks, play chess, play the Go. And he just sat besides the two chess player to watch that chess play. And he put his what's that called? Chopper, by the side. So he watched one game, and after this one game, the two childs, why don't you go home now? He then suddenly realized, he needs to go home. Well, he turns around. The chopper, the wooden handle, is already rotten, disappeared. When he went back to the village, all his families disappeared. All the villages changed. It's many decades after. So he actually went into a different level of reality in the mountain. So the time perception is different because the clock in the Platonic computer running at different rates. So all those first-hand experiences can be explained by this new model of reality.
Do you ever get challenged on these sorts of theories? So I can imagine, because this isn't mainstream.
No.
Science is mainstream.
No.
And you talked about a story of the witch doctor earlier. But that's where you started, was the story of the witch doctor.
Yeah.
And you said you wanted, as a younger person, to be able to understand what had happened.
Yes.
There was a spell. And
that's right, yeah.
So therefore, when you share these sorts of experiences, I know we talked about a counter-narrative earlier, but if someone was challenging you, what do you say to that? Because, of course, what we're looking at here is you're talking about evidence and you're talking to other people who are having these experiences.
Mainstream scientists, they cannot, first of all, they wouldn't accept actually what I described. They wouldn't listen to those people. So they basically say it's not possible. These things can happen. It cannot happen. Therefore, it must be fraud. That's their attitude.
And then when you hear the word, because everything you've discussed and shared today, they're saying is fraud.
Yeah.
And you're opposed to that by saying it's reality.
Well,
a different type of reality, consciousness.
Yeah, that's what I would say, but I don't always say it because it's useless. They wouldn't accept it anyway. Yeah. They think everything is just material. Everything non-material is basically illusion. Having said that, there's more and more people beginning to accept the simulation theory. Yeah. Once they accept the simulation theory, I think they will be more open. Yeah. Because if it's computer-generated reality, then there must be code. Yeah. The next question is, can the code be accessed? Can those code be modified, be manipulated? So those questions will follow. And if these codes can be accessed, then you have extraordinary fortune telling, for example, to access people who are past or in the future. And if you can modify those parameters, you can have mind over matter phenomena. So it will happen. You mentioned this is not mainstream, but it is the mainstream in the future, I believe. Yeah, because of the scientific revolution, because paradigm shift happens regularly in science. So we are kind of we are ahead. We are basically ahead of time. But it's coming.
Where does AI play into all of this and to the future?
AI is a poor AI is a poor simulation. It's a poor imitation of our true intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a shadow. Yeah. Because I have been research science and technology all my life. I'm still a scientist. But by researching all those non-physical phenomena, it became clear to me, actually, technology is actually poor copy of those superpower, magic power. Yeah. Because in a higher level reality, we have much more capabilities. We can see without eyes. Yeah, like what I mentioned, remote viewing. Yeah, you not using this physical eye, you see the eye of the higher self. We can see distance away. Yeah. So when we come to this level, we still remember we have this capability. Therefore, we try to reproduce this capability by technology. Therefore, we have television, we have a mobile phone. Yeah. And similarly, at the high level, we can hear, even some psychic people, they can hear sound from distance. They can talk with other people without telephone. But most people, when they come to this reality, they cannot do that. Then we develop technology to reproduce that. Telephone. Our higher self, our true self, knows everything because we have access to the database. We have access to all the wisdom in the high level. But when we come to this level reality, we don't know anything. We have to go to school. We have to get tortured. We have to do a lot of homework. We have to pass a lot of exams in order to actually to learn something. Yeah. But we have intelligence, but we still remember that intelligence. Therefore, we create AI as a poor copy, as an attempt to reproduce that intelligence. So hence we have a chat GPT. We can just ask questions, they give all the answers. But our higher self already have all the knowledge, all the answers already. But AI, we use the physical computer to reproduce that in a limited capacity. That's why I call it the shadow.
Interesting. I had a chat with ChatGPT yesterday about whether it was more intelligent than humans. And it said that it was a collection, that AI was a collective intelligence of all of our minds. And the way of that communication was obviously through the internet. So it's a collective consciousness of all humans.
Yeah. Because it has access to all the writings, all the speeches, all the human have ever done. So it has access to that database.
But it can't go beyond it. It can only go as far as we have discovered. It can't go beyond what we already know at this point.
That's correct.
Because it has to be written down by a human first.
Yeah.
And that's where its limitation is. And that's where humans still have to prevail to be able to research and go further.
I think horizontally, it's already very difficult to compete with AI because they are learning, self-learning capability is enormous now. Plus the accessibility of all the data we ever created. So we as an individual, we cannot compete in that respect. At the intelligence level, I call it intelligence. However, we have a consciousness. Consciousness is different. Yeah, intelligence is the capability to solve problems, to come up with answers, and to write essay or read a poem nowadays, or doing the math, or even programming now. That's intelligence. But consciousness is the source of all the intelligence. So the way we can actually handle artificial intelligence, actually to develop vertically, to uncover our higher self, rather than compete horizontally. Yeah. So we have more intelligence. We have access to the true self, which AI cannot.
Where does the true self and intuition, what is that? So when you get a feeling, thought, a true self, I find the more I've researched and understood me, the easier answers come to me. I don't need to research this conversation. I've done no research other than have a conversation with you. I find that the answers just come.
Yeah.
And I find that it's in a lot of situations now where the answers are just there. And that wasn't how I was when I was younger. I feel like there's some sort of link into intuition. When you're tapping in closer to your higher self, your higher consciousness.
Yeah.
Where's the link there with this higher self and intuition? What's bringing the thoughts or the feelings? Or
intuition is an expression of the higher self. Yeah, because of the higher self, the ultimate higher self, the source, I call it meta-consciousness. I define it as the power to create, the power to conceive, to perceive, to be self-aware. So that's my definition. Yeah, to create means to conceive means to create. So the ultimate creativity, the source of creativity is there. So that's why it can create all the level of reality, all the metaverse, all the parallel universes, all the content in the cosmos, as well as our thoughts, feelings, emotions. Those are all the content created by this source from different level. Yeah. So that's the creativity. And the power to perceive is the capability to experience what's been created. Like what we are experiencing now is the result of our collective creativity. We actually collaborate to create this podcast, and we actually experience it as well now. Yeah. So at the same time, we have the power to be self-aware. We have this self, I, which is I am. Before I am this, I am that. It's I amness. It's the I. It's me. It's the true self. It's the true identity. And that's the observer. That's the experiencer. That's the creator. Yeah. So if you have access to that source, even you are not access to the top, you still access to its shadow, to its derivatives. And by accessing higher level of that creativity, you have the creativity, which is expressed as intuition. Like, what are you going to ask? What are you going to do? that kind of intuition is created. It's expression of creativity.
It's interesting because I many years ago, I used to work abroad. I used to work on cruise ships, and when I was presenting, so I used to present quite large shows to audiences of 1,000 people, 1,500 people. So
it's a big cruise,
yeah, and I noticed then, I don't know what attracted me necessarily to it. It's just something I wanted to go and do when I was younger. Same as this, which is kind of I was attracted to it. But I was on stage in front of a lot of people, and I've always been quite comfortable in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen next. There have been times when I've been on stage, and this is why I feel like there's some sort of higher self or intuition that happens. And it's why I'm trying to understand it, because I've been on stage when I've been able to think to myself, like something's happened on stage. A guest has said something, they've said that, and then I've got an audience here. I remember this point from years ago where I started a sentence and I even said to myself, I don't know where this is going to go.
Okay.
And then by the end of the sentence, I'd made a joke and everyone laughed. And I was able to observe. I still remember it so well now. I was able to observe and go, oh, I wonder where this is going. And while I was talking, people laughed. And I just thought, there is something else more divine that's happening here. Because I'm so in the moment and in flow, I'm not necessarily, it's not me, because it's not my thought. It's just something that's happening. And I've never really been able to explain it. And a lot of people who, they're either artistic or they're football players or whatever. I was reading an article the other day about some of the highest performers in the world. I think it was like Tim Henman was talking about it. There was something else. And they were all saying, when we're playing, it's not them. It's a version of them that's playing, but they can't. They're not there. It's not them. They're either in so deep into flow, or they're so deep somewhere else. It's a program that's running. I can't remember where I read that from, but yeah.
Yeah, they are being played by their higher self. Yeah, you are being played by your higher self when you crack that successful joke. Yeah, it's yourself which is at work. But if you're conscious of that, you can have a better connection. You can improve the activity of that higher self. You will become more successful than you are now, if you're consciously doing that.
Yeah. And that's why I meditate. Because I feel like when I meditate in the morning, interestingly, it's always the morning. When I meditate in the evening, I don't have the same connection. But in the morning, when everything's fresh, I try and connect with some sort of higher self to give me the answers. And that's why I feel like just sitting there still in a darkened room. Yeah. Sometimes the answers come, sometimes they don't.
That's beautiful.
And it's creating the space for there to be some sort of connection. And I don't know, answers come to me.
Yeah. Again, that's activation of the higher self. Yeah. It's no good to just be an avatar. Yeah. So in daily life, you will meet a lot of people whose behavior is predictable. Yeah. Because they are running a set of program. Yes. They just react. Yeah. The higher self is not actually activated sufficiently. So that's why they become predictable. If the higher self is activated, you actually have a player to play this avatar. You become higher performing. You become wiser. Yeah, because that's closer to the ultimate wisdom.
Do you think we all have this higher self?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And do you feel like you have to train as almost like a dialogue, or you have to, I don't know how describe it. You have to 10 or 15, 20 years ago, I had no idea that was a thing. And it's only through probably in the last 5 years when I've tried to get more connection to an inner self or higher self. I didn't know what I was searching for, but through meditation, through journaling, through just time on my own, you kind of get this, like, what am I here for? That's, you get to a certain point in your life and you start to ask bigger questions. What's my purpose? Why am I here for?
Yeah.
What's my life's task? Those sorts of things. And I feel like tapping into that, you start to have those conversations with yourself or with wherever. And only then, when you're open to receive answers and be still, you start to get messages.
Yeah, be still is a key. Coming back to my model of the higher self, it's like a nested doors. Yeah. Our physical body is the outer layer. Except when you play a game, that avatar's body is another layer. Yeah. So if you meditate, you become still. This outer layer become inactive and eventually kind of drop off. It's like undressing. Yeah. Once this layer drops off, the inner layer, inner door, which is the higher self, become exposed, become active. So basically we are covered. So meditation is a way actually to undress. Yeah. You find your inner self. Yeah. Another metaphor you can use is actually it's like a hot air balloon. There's so many things in that bucket. Yeah. To hold it down, you cannot raise up. Therefore, you cannot access to the higher self. So meditation actually to unload those stones. If you unload the stones, the basket become lighter. Then you raise up.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah. So that's one way I use. I also meditate. Yeah. I use this model to help me to meditate. Yeah. So intellectually, we have a model which is helpful. Yeah. To give you direction. But practice, you can also use the model to give you direction also. Tell you what to do. Yeah. So at least, even you don't practice, you become aware that exist. Instead of being ignorant, denial. Yeah. Like most mainstream materialist science would deny anything non-physical. Therefore, they don't accept the possibility of a higher self. They don't even want to look at it. But if you intellectually understand something beyond this one, then you accept the possibility, then you actually start to explore its existence. Yeah. One way to explore is to meditate. Some people explore by psychedelics, by lucid dreaming. There's different ways to explore. But you start to explore. Then you find, actually, it's more real. It's a better version of me. And life becomes more interesting, more fun. Yeah. You become fearless. Something happened here. I think you've written a book, Get Out of the Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's are you lost in your shit?
Oh, yeah, lost in your shit. Yeah. Even you lost your shit, it's not a big deal anymore. Of course, you want to get out. But even in the shit, it's not a big deal. It's an experience. Yeah.
A lot of that, the concept of that book, the first two pieces in that book, one's about the mind, one's about the body. So one is about something that's the conscious consciousness, which we're talking about here today. And the second piece is about physical reality, your body. And the reason I started with the mind is because over the last 5 years, this is where I suffered. I had a period where I had quite severe depression, and I wanted to find a way through it. I had to live through that moment, and all of the things that I've learned since then, the meditation, journaling, even walking, just out in nature, I feel like all of these are ways of connecting to a higher self now. Yeah. So getting thoughts out, getting onto paper, that's one way of communicating it. Going out for a walk, you'll find answers. Meditation, my gosh, you'll discover so much about yourself. And all of that kind of self-inquiry, it's changing the programs of how things work in your mind. So for example, it allowed me to respond differently to situations. So what I found, I'll give you a funny example. I used to get really triggered. I don't know why this was. I used to get really triggered by if I was eating with friends or family and someone was eating really loudly, whatever. For some reason, there would be something in me that would get triggered. And I'd be raged. I remember one time calling a friend out, going, "Oh my God, the way you're eating, it's disgusting, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, since having that inquiry and everything else, when that feeling came up in more recent years, someone in our family, again, was kind of eating at the table, it was just hold it there and go, well, what's happening here? Why is that feeling there? I mean, it's kind of like a joke experience, but over time, because I had lots of dinners with this person, I was able to let it rise up, and then eventually it just starts to dissipate. And it's a little bit like you're able to just start to undo programs that are running. And rewire your brain, rewire your thought processes, you can rewire so much about yourself as soon as you're conscious of it.
Yes.
Aware, it's the self-awareness piece. So then actually I want to respond differently in this situation. And now, just in that one particular example, it just doesn't bother me. It's not triggering. If anything, I laugh. And it just shows you can absolutely rewire your brain.
You can.
I've needed to go on this particular journey myself because going through therapy, certain situations I'd find really triggering and it would completely send me off. I'm talking about far bigger situations with parenting and bosses and those sorts of things. But you can completely rewire yourself through self-awareness, through intelligence, through being more conscious of what is actually happening at this moment. Right, and that's almost rising above or just being indifferent to kind of how you were before.
You're in control. That means your higher self is in action.
It's all like an awakening.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can describe it from when I've learned, I did some courses and I learned meditation, actually start getting into it.
Yeah.
It's like an awakening.
It's
the only way I can describe 5 years ago to now. It's an awakening.
It is awakening of the higher self. Therefore, it play you. You're no longer an NPC. You're no longer NPC. You are a player. The player has the capability to pick which program to run instead of having to run this program to react. So you become a higher self, basically.
And do you think there's this connection between your current physical person, self, and maybe as you go through your life, you're getting closer to connecting your higher self in a physical realm. So therefore there is a higher version of you. And that's just something natural, which is growth. And you're always kind of, if you're interested in growth and self-improvement and those things, you are always closing the gap and getting closer to it.
Yes.
Is that what you found?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But sometimes you can just jump instead of gradually build up. Yeah. Like climbing a ladder. Yeah. Gradually.
Yeah. Very
reaching
incremental.
It. Sometimes you can just jump.
How?
Quantum leap. Something called, it's a sudden realization. People sometimes get that trauma, for example. In some traditions, masters, spiritual tradition, the master, Taoist master actually shock the students into awakening.
Okay.
Yes, various ways. Yeah.
How would that happen?
Sometimes they beaten them up, sometimes physically. Yeah, it works for some students. Yeah. Of course, meditation is good. It's more gentle. It just naturally, naturally emerges. The higher self emerges from the quietness. Yeah. But some people get it from shock, from dangerous sports. Yeah. Some people addicted to dangerous sports, jumping off the building or jump from the cliff, because they have, from that, they experience the higher self, which is beautiful, which is peace. Yeah. Paradoxically, it's a peace. Even it's dramatic sports, dangerous, jumping from the parachute. Some people get that.
I did a parachute jump a number of years ago when I was in Mexico, and it was a tandem jump, and so therefore there was a very big German man attached to my back. He was very funny, very interesting guy, and when we got on the edge of the plane, rocked us forward, rocked us back, and we went. At the point of going, there was like a 45-second free fall. And I can only describe it as being so in the moment, in flow, almost like my friend described it when he did when he did psychedelics. Is that you don't know you're you don't know where you are. Obviously, all I can see is the earth, yeah. But I'm not scared, and that's the thing. There's no peace. You're at peace. It's very loud because of the wind. And the funny thing was, and this is why it's probably very memorable for me, because you were then jolted back into reality. And then when that happened, it's because the person, the guy on my back, I can't remember his name now, pulled the string. And of course, we went back up quickly. And he went, yeehaw. And suddenly I was like, where did you come from? And I completely lost the point of there was even somewhere else of what we were doing where we were. Yeah. You were so in flow in the moment. Yeah. I completely forgotten there was a 6-foot German attached to my back. Yeah. But that's how the adrenaline, the thing we were doing, you were so encapsulated into it.
It's more than physical.
Yes.
It's more than adrenaline. It's a spiritual awakening also. That's one way to activate higher self through dangerous sports.
Well, I've loved talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time. And the amazing thing is I look across and we've had well over 2 hours of talking.
Time flies.
And that's what I mean. This is why one of the reasons why I love doing this is that time just goes. And although I've got to keep an eye on the clock occasionally, I'm so riveted by your conversation. If someone wants to know more about you or get in contact, is there a website or is there a way of communicating if they'd like to know more?
I have a website called metaconsciousness.com. From that, you can get to my YouTube channel, my X page, so you can get more of my information. What I haven't mentioned on my website is I also do private consultation for people who are actually interested in getting out of the matrix. Yeah. We can design a bespoke, like a roadmap, to help people to actually, because everybody's individual, everybody's different, everybody start at different position in their journey. Yeah, some kind of route works for certain type of people, some doesn't. So we need to find the path which actually to help people step by step to get out. Yeah. I also teach transpersonal psychology as well as parapsychology as an adjunct professor in U.S. university. So I teach online. So yeah, we have access to information in those two disciplines as well. Transpersonal psychology means to finding your higher self, to transcend from this egoistic self, to find your bigger self, true self, higher self. Whereas parapsychology is to study those weird paranormal phenomena, which can be fun. Yeah. So, yeah, some people actually, because of my research, they actually enrolled into that university to learn this systematically. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, there's various ways we can communicate with people. We can help people to grow. Yeah. That's my purpose of doing this, really.
To help people grow.
Yeah. Grow out of this materialist prison. Yeah. To get out of the matrix.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.